Well, I'm so glad to be here with you today, Dr. Osimo. Shall we jump in?
Yes, uh, let's try.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, tell me about how you see the real relationship and how maybe that contrasts to the transference-based relationship.
Well, it's a twofold question, I think. So let's start with the first part about the real relationship. And Actually, I think that there is a bit of a paradox in psychotherapy, starting from psychoanalysis or even before, that is about uh, mm, introducing techniques and systems to be therapeutic, to be healing, uh, and in a way, this is totally understandable. But at the same time, it takes away from the real relationship. So when I want to uh, support focusing on the real relationship, I think I'm actually partly undoing or trying to undo something that has happened in the last centuries. And Of course, we know about every type of therapy has a ritual. For instance, the couch for old-time psychoanalysis.
Mhm.
And Something I want to say also is that Davanloo very well understood that it was necessary to go beyond the ritual and to go directly to emotional experiencing.
Mhm.
However, to some extent, I think he ended up creating a new ritual, kind of that you can call, to simplify, central dynamic sequence, or you can call it John. It doesn't matter. But in a way, he also privileged technique. And once more, it is totally understandable because you need to start from some place,
Mhm.
and he's provided precious technical improvements. At the
Mhm.
same time, I find that if you stay too much
Mhm.
on the technique,
Mhm.
you put a distance.
Mhm.
So you go far from the real relationship. So
Mhm. Mhm.
now going to the real relationship means
Mhm.
um, um, having interest and actively mirroring and pointing out um, all what belongs to the humanity, to the human quality of
Mhm.
the two people or two or more,
Mhm.
if it's a group, people involved, without thinking of their meaning or before thinking of any meaning
Mhm.
they may have,
Mhm.
um, just to make room for that, for observing and sharing all what is the human characteristics of the two people involved.
Mm. Is that related to trying to enter the client's frame of reference and to try to understand them on their terms first?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the aim of that, the main aim, is uh, uh, to bring about to let the what I call the interpersonal current to to establish and to give it attention, to pay attention to it,
Mhm.
because when two people interact, like you and me now, there is a part that goes generally mostly unnoticed, and that it is not to do with the words we say or even with uh, the gesture or anything, but it is to do with uh, kind of a primitive, unconscious
Hmm.
response to each other.
Mm.
And it is largely mm, undetected. If you don't actively want to pay attention to it, it is even more largely undetected. But by giving it attention,
Mm.
it creates a sense of being together. By that, I don't mean together like that, but of being interacting also at more primitive levels,
Mm.
not only at evolved levels. And that um, creates a basis that
Mm.
strengthens the connection
Mm.
in a way that is unspoken
Mm.
but very strong.
Mm.
And it is a facilitator. It is like feeling at home with you,
Mm.
or kind of, if you
Mm.
see what I mean.
Mm. Mm. Is that where the physical body comes in regards to the real relationship, this undercurrent?
It is also that, yes.
Mm.
It is not only the body,
Mm.
but the body is an important part of it because the body speaks, and the body cannot lie unless you are a great actor. But still, it is difficult in the one-to-one close interaction. It is difficult to lie with your body.
Mm.
So it's a very direct way, and actually, I think it involves and borders the body also with cultural aspects, because some of the expressions of the mimicry we use are also culturally influenced to some extent. Not all of that, of course, but part of it, yes.
Mm.
Or for sure, the outfit is something that is also culturally related, but not only. It is also related to your personality, the way you want to choose your shirt. That is much nicer than mine, by the way. And and so there are some idiosyncratic kind of constitutional aspect that is difficult to seize, but one can try to
Mhm.
mirror, to reflect to the extent that one is able to,
Mm.
because much goes undetected anyway.
Mm.
But trying to focus on at least on some of that
Mhm.
creates a more um, basic, more primordial
Mm.
type of connection
Mhm.
that I find facilitates things, creates a good basis, a good ground on
Mhm.
which to start therapy. And by the way, you also mentioned the transference. The transference, we know that is something very, very real, very present, and it is also precious in psychotherapy. But in a way, it is the complementary part to it is complementary to the real relationship. In a way,
Mm.
it is the other face of the moon, because the real relationship is what has to do with me, and you. And the transference is imported from
Mhm.
other relationships. So it is actually, in a way, it is the opposite, but the two complement each other.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because the notion of the real relationship implies that there is an unreal relationship. I'm assuming that would be the transference.
Yes. Well, I think perhaps if you want to put it like that, there are three relationships. The
Mm.
real relationships the transference and the fake.
Mm,
Because by which I mean the attempt to have a mask and
mm,
not to let uh, uh, the way you really are transpire. Uh,
mm,
so I think there is probably a
mm-hmm,
third
mm,
person in the room at least, and a
mm-hmm,
fourth and a fifth. But anyway,
mm-hmm. Well, I can imagine that the transference and the mask can be very connected, if not collapsed together in one category sometimes, right?
yes. Now, I'm referring to, you're right. When I say mask, I mean when the therapist decides to put up a mask.
Oh, the therapist. Oh, I thought you meant the
Yeah.
client. Oh, yeah. Okay, okay.
So that is one more character.
Oh, yes, yes. I get it now. Yes, you wrote about that. That's what you wrote. You said that the real relationship is to renounce the therapist. The therapist renouncing hiding oneself behind the professional veneer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm, mm. So you wrote about the dirty man, and when I read that
Yeah.
transcript, are you remembering what I'm referring to in the book?
Yeah. I think it was an example, a
Exactly.
clinical example of real relationship in the book Experiential Dynamic Psychotherapy Theory and Practice.
That's right. You co-authored that book with who was that again?
My co-editor is Mark Stein
Mark Stein.
and a number of other colleagues,
Mm,
especially from the English, the UK, and Italian core training,
mm,
uh, co-authored
mm,
the book, adding chapters with
mm,
case histories of their own and also
mm.
theoretical parts. Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, when I think about
yeah,
that clinical example, the dirty man, what stands out in my mind is how you were explicit about how the patient felt affected by your listening, by your care, by your genuine interest. And you explicitly elicited from the patient his responses to how that affected him. Am I on the mark there?
yes, that is uh, an important aspect of the way you can work with the real relationship.
Mm,
That when it comes to the forefront,
mm,
um, you actually uh, uh, address it very in much detail.
mm,
And so now I'm not on the book, but
mm,
on the clinical case.
mm,
But I imagine um, um, I may have asked him when he said something like because you listened to me or
mm, mm.
something like that. I
Yes.
may have asked him, um, "Are you sure
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to you?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said he gave a first defensive answer, saying, "Well, for sure, you listen to me with your ears,
Mm,
uh, but and you know you can stay there and say,
mm,
so you're not sure I'm really listening to you," which of course has also transference implications because, or possibly it does have at the same time as it has real relationship implications because the man had been very poorly listened to by a very cold mother.
mm,
So it was twofold because there was a transference aspect to it and an actual experiential thing that he felt that I was being genuinely present and empathic and interested in him. But it took me, I think, a few uh, probing, a few questions to him to make sure that he had to, and it is an indirect way of putting pressure, if you will, that he had to clearly spell out something like, yes, you are listening to
Mhm.
me, and
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
are really interested. And that moment, he started crying in sadness. So
Mhm.
it is a direct, effect of the real relationship on
Mhm.
an old and deep feeling.
Mm. Yeah, you invited him to own it, that he really had the experience, that you cared and that you listened. I can see how that would be an indirect form of pressure for sure. Now, while we're on this topic, tell me a little bit about how you see how leaning into and making use of the real relationship, how that can reduce the need in the therapist to use the technique of pressure, to work hard at applying pressure.
Uh, Work hard at applying pressure is a kind of way to create a, a bit of an artificial condition whereby the eruption of deep emotion is facilitated, or holding it back becomes impossible if we want to carry it to the extreme. So it is kind of working on the situation, not working with the other person. And it is something one can do, and it can be effective. But in a way, my my take is, if you can get to the same result without taking an artificial kind of position
Mm,
and remaining yourself with the other,
mhm,
isn't it preferable,
mhm,
since we want to help people to
mhm,
have normal
mhm,
types of
mhm,
human interaction?
mhm,
Why not to try to start
mhm,
by having a more natural way
mhm,
of interacting?
mhm.
We will be already closer to what we want to achieve.
Yes, this makes a lot of sense to me. But do you ever find that it's important to get a certain level of rise into complex transference feelings, and that the real relationship sometimes is not sufficient to obtain that level of rise?
In that case, you can start putting pressure,
Mm,
but in a way you can choose
mm,
whether one can choose whether one wants to start by putting pressure,
mm,
or to start by the real relationship. And if the resistance, or the type of uh, uh, op- or the type of superego, or I mean various factors,
mm,
is too strong, and you cannot um, have reason of it only by the real relationship, then you can start
mhm,
putting the pressure.
mhm,
But in my experience, it's not necessary the majority
mm,
of the times.
mm,
Only in a minority
mm,
of the cases, it is necessary to become more technical, in inverted commas, and um, not leave any uh, 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 not let the patient get away,
mm,
if you will,
mm,
and put pressure and be relentless with defenses until it can happen. It also depends on how good is the work with real relationship, because the more the patient is gets involved, the less they will resist.
mhm,
So probably necessary less of an effort. But yes, in some cases it is can be necessary.
mhm,
So
mhm, mhm. Well, this makes sense.
another thing that is a kind of corollary to this
Mhm,
is that one can I think one should wonder what is the optimal intensity of emotional experience. Do
Mhm.
we need always a high or full,
Mhm.
which is a great word,
Mhm.
a full intensity, a
Mhm.
full experience? The answer is no.
Mhm.
We don't always need a full size, that is kind of a leftover from an hydraulic system, that you want to get it all out. But it's not necessary.
Mhm.
Most of the time, uh, uh, I remember I used since the foundational YEDTA conference in 2001. I wrote about the good enough emotional experience.
Mhm.
So it needs to be, when is it good enough? When
Mhm.
it is convincing,
Mhm.
when it is undoubtedly that feeling that is happening, that is being experienced. When it is that, you don't need to have it stronger.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
enough.
Mhm. And if the feeling experience replaces the maladaptive defense that was papering over the feeling, that would also be a good indicator that it's enough. Like the defense is now in abeyance.
Sure, sure. Uh, Lee McCullough, that I loved very much as a therapist, theoretician, and as a person, made this difference between talking about emotion and feelings and experiencing
Mhm.
feelings.
Mhm.
That is, of course, two very different things.
Yes. And also, I'm thinking right now that insofar as the real relationship involves a certain measure of transparency on the part of the therapist, that I have found, and I'm interested in your thoughts about this, but I have found that when I allow for a certain measure of transparency in my gestalt and how I am, that it seems to be an effective way of clearing out projections, especially heavier projections where there can be some loss of reality testing, that there's a certain set of defenses that actually thrive in obscurity when the therapist is rendered more invisible and neutral. That's been my experience, that when I allow for some use of self in that regard, that it can be very effective at neutralizing projections. But what are your thoughts about that?
I totally agree. And of course, another um, uh, aspect that get greatly decreased by using the real relationship is what is called resistance to emotional closeness. Because we talk in terms of resistance to emotional closeness, but where is the therapist? What is the therapist doing? Is the therapist close, or is the therapist working with, like with a robot surgeon that uh, 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 doesn't even directly touch things. So also, when you make use of the real relationship, you have you deal you have less resistance to emotional closeness. Actually, you have more closeness, to put it more directly, and or anyway, it takes less of an effort to get to a close or to a closer relationship. And regarding projection, I think I totally agree with you, especially when you treat someone with some heavy projection, like paranoid, or with someone with some paranoid tinges or psychotic aspects. Um, of course, the projection occurs very easily on the part of the patient, and they can easily feel that mm, you are plotting at times, that they become suspicious, uh, can happen. And this can be sometimes easily dissolved, melted by a naive, direct comment about you and the other person in a realistic way,
Mm.
and it kind of melts down because it you bring things back to the simplicity of the here and now.
Mm. Yeah.
So yes, I think that the real relationship is a helpful antidote to projection.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, you're certainly singing my tune. Uh, Dr. Osimo, what do you have to say to the people that are concerned that utilization of the real relationship could inspire compliance or could exploit the patient's already built-in tendency to people please? Reflections on that.
Well, I think some therapists, but perhaps it would be more right to say some psychotherapy theories um, involve a kind of phobia of love, uh, especially in therapy, as though love and or God forbid, eroticization of the relationship are the devil. Uh, and of course, this is true to some extent, that we don't want to make the the therapeutic relationship a love, a sentimental relationship, because that is anti. We would be doing something different from. We would be out of a helping
Mm.
relationship.
Yes.
That's true, but we shouldn't carry it to the point of becoming phobic
Mm.
of good feelings in the relationship.
Mm.
So, for instance, when we are afraid of compliancy or of being compliant or pleasing, um, uh, that's right. We need to beware of that. But uh, to some extent, being pleasing may be a way of being affectionate.
Mm.
Uh, uh, Now, it depends,
Mm.
because if the person becomes pleasing in a way that is self-sacrificing,
Mm.
uh, or um, mm, yeah, or taking away attention and affection for for themselves to be pleasing towards the therapist, that is a problem,
Mm.
no doubt. But I think we should not be phobic,
Mhm.
and and uh, uh, and anyway, my guideline personally is that anything can happen, almost everything, not right everything, but almost everything can happen between patient and therapist, and the boundary is that the therapist needs to have a clear sense of what it means to help the other person,
Mm.
because the, that doesn't mean, I'm not referring to the techniques, but to the attitude of the therapist
Mhm.
that needs to be of giving help
Mhm.
in a highly specific or specialized way, but and then there are techniques and everything. Um, but you need to know in every moment as a therapist what giving help is all about. And of course, you also need to learn how to do it because the other thing you need to convey is that you have the means, you know how to do it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how to give help.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we are clear
Mm-hmm.
about these two things, how to give help, or and anyway to have a number of ways that we know
Mm-hmm.
to give help, and we don't lose the track of that our relationship there is the relationship with the patient in which everything is allowed except derailing from the mission that is giving help. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the boundary.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm glad that you have wanted to put me questions about the real relationship, and and I think it may mean that there is some real similarity of the way we see things or certain things.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Yes, I'm so looking forward to our workshop in October. That'll be so exciting. But Osimo, I have found that actually, when I make use of the real relationship, that is very much central to what ultimately conveys and demonstrates to the client that I don't need their caretaking. I don't need them to give up their autonomy in order to try to placate me. Like the real relationship is actually quite central to that message to the client that I don't need that. It doesn't mean I don't have
Mhm.
preferences. Of course, I prefer for them to reach their goals and to face things rather than to avoid things and all of that. But I don't need them to.
Yes, I think you're touching on a crucial aspect that I think the way perhaps I would put it is that you don't need them to gratify you,
Mhm.
which doesn't mean that you are not gratified
That's
by
right.
them,
Yes, exactly.
but it means that you also have other sources of gratification in your life. So you don't depend
Mhm.
on the gratification you can get from the patient.
Mhm. That's right. That's right. The other thing you said at the very beginning of our talk today is that leaning into a heavy focus on technique can absolutely detract from the real connection and the real relationship, which totally lines up with how I see things. But what do you say to the people that say it's a false dichotomy to separate the real relationship from techniques, that they should not be in separate categories? What do you say to that?
Well, I say that it all depends on whether you make room for the real relationship in the interaction with the patient. You mention it, you address aspects that are connected to the real relationship. You inquire about, for instance, one of the questions I put to patients is, uh, how is it for you to be here with me now? Or uh, how am I?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I ask, do you like me?
Mm-hmm.
So I put the finger on it. The real relationship is there anyway, no
Mm-hmm.
doubt. It's not us creating the real relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but we can keep it implicit,
Mm-hmm.
or we can talk about it. We can make it be before our eyes.
Or run away from it. by
Well,
defensively starting to apply a technique or a protocol.
yes, and thinking it doesn't matter to directly address it.
Mm-hmm.
One can also think in those terms.
Mm-hmm.
I would not agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this makes sense. I'm wondering what you think about how Davanloo made use of the real relationship. For example, sometimes when I read his transcripts, he'll say things like, you know, there's a fork in the road, you have a choice to make, keep the wall or take the wall down. And I hope you decide to take the wall down. So that kind of transparency that he is not impartial, I tend to interpret that as making use of or highlighting the real relationship. But what do you think?
I agree.
Mm,
Uh, uh, and of course, Davanloo has been a great therapist, clinician, not only the founder of a new form of psychotherapy. So um, I think he had a very special um, uh, deep empathy, um, like kind of primitive, um, like an animal in the jungle. By the way, he often compared or brought in the figure of the grizzly bear or other animals, or he talked about in Iran because he was Persian, as you know, the some wild animals. Now I don't remember exactly in the desert. He evoked these atmospheres and mentioned actual animals, in the wild animals, and I think he had this. Well, I met him and I've known him from a certain closeness. So, even though I was never his patient, I tried to, but it didn't happen. This is just a historical thing.
mhm,
And um, so I think he had a, like mm, very developed, highly developed sense of smelling, smelling feelings, emotion, smelling the other. So it was so um, pronounced, this as his personal characteristic, that probably he didn't need to necessarily spell it out, or because anyway he sensed it.
mm,
So I think he was very much attuned to uh, primitive ways of uh, of functioning.
mhm,
So in a way, he was already there.
mhm. Well, he did write on page 3 of Unlocking the Unconscious that he developed the method intuitively. He did say that explicitly in his writing.
Mhm.
He does strike me very intuitive as well. I met him a couple of times. He something instinctive, like there's an instinctive energy about him.
Yes.
So, having seen some of his work and having read a lot of his transcripts, I have the impression that earlier in the 70s and in the 80s, he seemed to be more grounded and rooted in the real relationship. And then later in the 90s and 2000s, he seemed to be much more just about rapid, major mobilization. And it felt like the real relationship got lost there a little bit. That was my impression. But what do you think?
Uh, I don't know because I've been in touch with him in the 80s, and then I had no more direct connection with him because he broke with me. So I wouldn't be able to say this from a direct experience of relationship with him. What what I know of him, I don't know if it's related to what you say, is that he very much wanted to, um, if I can say so, to be remembered, to be in history as the builder of a new
Mhm.
system. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, uh, and so he probably wanted um, to be able to entrust to us, to give to others this something that was that had a shape and a structure,
Mhm.
uh, and so he may have stressed these aspects more,
Mhm.
even though uh, 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 clinically he was also
Mhm.
himself, as we all are. I think at the end at the end of the day, I think every therapist is first of all a person and a human being, and that is the reason that um, much as we develop and discover something new
Mhm.
in terms of technique,
Mhm.
it is actually a shame, and it is actually wrong to forget about our actual nature of person and human being. It is like a kind of self-mutilation,
Mhm.
and it's a pity to
Mhm.
do that.
Yes, I agree. Osimo, how is it possible that someone can be such a genius in one area and so incredibly dysfunctional in another area? And I know you know what I'm referring to.
That it may seem the the $1 million question, uh, mm, and uh, I don't know, but I think Einstein had an awful character.
Mm,
Uh, I'm not sure about Freud,
mm,
but for sure he was very neurotic,
mm,
and you know. mm, I won't adventure into clinical evaluations of people, but um, uh, but I think reality is that even geniuses are so human,
mm,
and therefore may excel in one area
mm,
but be even wanting or faulty in some other area.
mhm.
I think it's really the human condition.
Mm. Yeah, I'm letting all of this sink in and percolate. I really, really appreciate everything you're saying. Osimo, why do you think that the real relationship is not discussed very much in the EDT community these days?
Um, I think it is probably because uh, if you talk about uh, uh, a technique, you feel you have something in your hands, maybe a bit of a more masculine idea. I don't know. If you talk about in terms of the real relationship, uh, it seems that you are kind of disarmed, or uh, you have nothing to offer other than the simple real relationship. I think the opposite is true,
Mm. Hmm.
uh, and that only putting the two aspects together
Mm.
can enable uh, a therapist to give the best, to make the most of what we are.
Mhm.
Nobody's perfect. No therapist can can help everyone. But we try to to make the most of what we are. That's what we can do.
Hmm. So you've talked about the undercurrent. You've talked about how our
The
body,
personal current,
the
you mean?
interpersonal current, yes. The body, how the body communicates, the clothing we wear, our spontaneous mannerisms, facial expressions, that kind of a thing. Um, I certainly have a ballpark, not hiding behind a professional veneer. I certainly have a ostensive ballpark. But if you had to define the real relationship, what would you say is the essence of it?
To look at uh, the other person uh, as a person, as in their physical uh, 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 outlook, um, to ask the other person to be looked at also in the same way, to convey attention to these aspects,
Mm,
not to let them disperse or be ignored,
mm,
but um, to use some of the time
mm,
and faculty
mhm,
that we have to give attention to these aspects
mm,
and to make it explicit,
mm,
to actually uh, talk about it.
mhm.
Uh, I sort of lost you, but
Oh, I'm
maybe,
here. I'm still here.
okay, just the image disappeared, but now I got it
Oh, good.
back. Good.
Because it sounds to me, tell me if I'm off the mark, but it sounds to me like very, very central to what you're describing is to see and to be seen for the
Yes,
reality of who and what we are. When that is taking place, when there's real seeing of the client as they actually are, and they're also seeing us the way we are, that seems very, very central to the real relationship. Does that square?
it does, but it is a part of the real relationship. Another part is, for instance, a patient tells me, uh, uh, crying, but no, I come here because anyway, I feel better after the sessions and my life has improved. And I ask her, but how is it for you to be here?
Mm,
Uh, and uh, uh, what um, what is the sense uh, of you being here with me? And they would often say, well, you help me because I pay you, for instance.
mhm,
And then I would say things like, um, yes, you pay me, but I still could not help you.
mhm,
Or I could decide to help you for free.
mm,
So, what is specific
mm,
of you and me here? What
mm,
is your perception of me? And
mm,
I try to ask them to give attention, yes, not only to my face, but also to the sense, to how they experience being there.
mm,
And I can tell them in return uh, also the way I experience them, which is something I also use in my idea of the character hologram.
mm,
I don't know if you're familiar with it. That is a kind of um, comprehensive picture
mm,
of what the other person conveys to me.
mm,
So it is an image
mm,
or a twofold image, but it is at the same time it is a mirroring of my perception, and therefore it has to do also with the real relationship. But
Mm.
anyway, this would get us a bit far
Oh, I
from.
see. Well. Yeah. When sometimes people say, well, this is your job, you're here because I pay you. I'll say, well, it is my livelihood, but do you have the impression that I'm just doing this for a paycheck, that I'm going through the empty motions and I'm not that into this? Is that really how I come across to you? That sometimes is my.
Right, right. Good for you.
Hmm.
Are you happy with what we said about a real relationship?
Yeah, very happy. This is very meaningful to me. And I also think that the community will benefit. So I'm very excited for that.
And I'm glad you have this interest, also because you are much younger than me,
Mm,
and so I am particularly pleased
mm,
that a younger colleague
mm,
has interest in this.
mm. Well, I'm really honored that you're interested in connecting with me and collaborating with me. And again, we're doing a workshop.
Sure.
We're facilitating a workshop in October, the end of October. Just reach out to me for specific details if you're interested. But it's going to be about the real relationship, and we'll be showing vignettes of videos and so on. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting myself.
And you, and also take some holidays, some vacation, because it's very important. I
Mm,
will, for
mm,
sure,
mm.
and I hope you will too.
Thank you for the reminder. Thank you. I do need that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the interview.
My honor.
Until next time.
Yes. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.